Hello, cooking enthusiasts. Today's video is pretty special. We have a brand new camera angle, and I'm actually able to show you guys cooking a recipe. This is going to be a one pan slash one pot Alfredo recipe, and it's heavily inspired by the Bon Appetit Alfredo recipe. I've kept things pretty minimal, but I have a few tricks up my sleeve, and I also do things a little bit differently from many one-pot pasta recipes. Today I'm using capellini, which looks like spaghetti, but it's actually more similar to a very thin bucatini, so it actually has a thin hole in the middle of it, and it lets it cook very quickly. Under normal conditions, it cooks in 4 to 5 minutes. So the first tip I would give you for making a one-pan pasta like this is that you really need to taste the noodles as you're going. Even with a really good burner, you're not going to get a complete rolling boil in a very open pan like this. Now, I actually screwed up using a really quick cooking pasta because the ideal next step happens when the pasta is about 80% cooked, and with a quick cooking noodle, that's harder to pinpoint. So the first time you're trying this, you might want to go with a more standard pasta shape that could take 8 to 10 minutes to cook fully and probably 6 to 8 minutes to cook to 80%. However, if you do overshoot a little bit and reach sort of fully done, ideal al dente, it's not the end of the world. Again, I was able to rescue it, and I think one of the great things about this recipe is that it is quite forgiving. One thing I'll address is in the very beginning, we did season the pasta water, but not as aggressively as I would for normal pasta boiling, because potentially a significant amount of this pasta water is going to end up in the final dish, so you don't want it too salty. While the pasta finishes up cooking, let's go over the rest of our ingredients. This is a very traditional Alfredo in most ways. The only other main ingredients we have is real Parmigiano cheese and butter. This is two generous portions, so there was 200 grams of dry pasta, roughly 60 grams of Parmesan cheese, and 60 grams of butter. And to amp up the flavor, I used Parmigiano cultured butter. If you're interested in knowing how I made Parmigiano cultured butter, you can check the link in the video description. Now let's finally talk about the secret ingredient. Right at the top of the frame is what looks like normal water, but that's actually a concentrated sodium citrate solution. Sodium citrate is a modernist ingredient that you may have seen me use in my processed cheese making videos. It's used by many chefs and cooks now to make either really smooth cheese sauces or to make processed cheese. I've turned it into a concentrated solution so I can more easily add it to an active cooking scenario. Now, again, I would say I made a mistake here. At this point, the pasta was pretty much perfectly cooked al dente instead of being almost 80% there. If you do that also, I would avoid the second mistake I made, which is not draining off enough pasta water. In an ideal situation, you want to be 80% done on your pasta, and then you can drain probably 3/4 of your pasta water off, but reserve any of it so you can add it back if needed. Not only did I overshoot my pasta doneness, but I also didn't drain enough water from the pan. However, I was still able to rescue the dish. We had the pan on maximum heat for boiling the pasta, but once you're trying to make the sauce, you want to drop it to a very low temperature. All of the butter has gone in, and we are now gradually adding the cheese. Again, it's going to look like it's not going to come together, but it is. For this video, I'm using one pan as a proof of concept and for convenience. However, you could easily adapt some of my tricks to cooking the pasta separately and then finishing it in a pan. You can see the cheese is clumping up, but this is where our sodium citrate solution comes in. Again, it is technically optional, but I think it's going to help a lot of people out. I know from Reddit that a lot of people have trouble with really traditional Alfredo and cacio e pepe, which has similar issues. And remember that this is my caregiver's first time making a pan sauce like this, so the sodium citrate is a nice little insurance. The exact amounts aren't important, but for me, it was 80 grams of sodium citrate dissolved into roughly 1 cup of hot water, and I probably ended up using 3 or 4 spoonfuls of it in this pan sauce. Again, I definitely should have had more water drained out before, and then I could have added it back in as needed, but this will come together, I promise. Of course, the other option is to make a Alfredo sauce or an Alfredo cheese slice similar to my cacio e pepe cheese slice. I questioned actually not uploading this video because I did make a few key mistakes, but it's all worth it for this magic moment. Again, this could have gone a lot smoother, and obviously it can be done without the sodium citrate, but I think you'll agree that it did help bring things together in the end. I'm adding nutmeg here as an optional extra, and earlier I added plenty of black pepper. And voila! It has come together. The final product had no discernible clumps, no real sodium citrate taste, and was absolutely delicious. Once your pasta is done, you want to plate it quickly. There's lots of additional ways you can finish Alfredo. I simply went with a little extra black pepper and some chanterelles I had around. Some more nutmeg, some roasted garlic, or some lemon zest are also great. Of course, you could apply this technique to lots of other cheese-based pan sauces. If you have any questions about this technique, please let me know in the comments. If you've never had real Alfredo, I highly recommend giving it a try. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider sharing. Otherwise, thank you for watching.